Oh, well, hello there. What are you doing out here in the middle of the Lucidian Ocean? If you're going to plan an adventure down into the Netherdeep, you best come prepared. Tell you what, meet me up at the surface, and I'll help you flesh out a character that will help best fit this setting. Let's go.
All right, welcome to the Cleric Corner. My name is Riker, and here we talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons, tapping into our higher powers to create worlds more unique and stories more impactful. With the call of the Netherdeep adventure being out just this Tuesday, we want to be prepared to make the best NPCs as DMs and the best characters as players. This adventure book puts you on a journey starting from the ancient battlefield of the gods and puts you in the otherworldly depths of an ocean. All of this being set in the world of Exandria from Critical Role, and I quote, "from ancient notes that never saw the stream." The question is, how do you come in? Where does your character fit in this vast world? How can you make your character innately tied to the story you're setting? Luckily, I've done most of the work for you, and I actually made an entire script right before this one, which included every single region from Exandria, but quickly thought, well, that's way too broad. So I will focus on the amazing locations within this adventure, and if you do want to see the other script in its own video, let me know. But taking a look at 2 separate locations, we're going to look at 10 subclasses or concepts from each of them, flavored with background and feat recommendations to help your character feel really a part of this world. And that way the DM could have an easier time tying you into the story. So from the colorful wastes of Xhorhas and the corrupted depths of the Netherdeep, put on a snorkel, we're diving deep. If your character is a local of Xhorhas, it's important to know how these Badlands came to be. A long time ago, the good and evil gods were pitted against each other in a war called the Calamity, fighting on one side to either keep their creations and another to destroy them. The war only ending in the Divergence, where the good gods took all the divine deities and put them behind a divine gate, keeping them all from directly influencing their creations. Xhorhas itself was ground zero of this war, which created massive and dark scars across the landscape. Echoing the emotions of despair and loss, creatures of the Shadowfell also make their home here. But despite the history of this magical wasteland, a lot of creatures still thrive in this place. Wander in the wrong places at the wrong time, and you're still affected by the war eons ago. So for concept number 1, we look at the Shadow Sorcerer, specifically one where the land meets the sea in a place called the Blight Shore. Creatures who die here are known to reawaken as creatures called the Hollow Ones, those who still continue on walking even though their souls have long left their body. A Gloomstalker Ranger, a Shadow Monk, or a Undead Warlock are also viable choices. As you might know, Laudna from Campaign 3 of Critical Role is one of these Hollow Ones. You can take this supernatural boon from the Wildmount campaign setting, or you can choose the Reborn Lineage option for your race. You could be wandering this landscape aimlessly, trying to find purpose in your chance at second life. Perhaps it's even been decades since you've last been alive. For concept number 2, we look at the leading society in Xhorhas called the Kryn Dynasty, a civilized superpower of dark elves or drow that are at war, or now in armistice, with their neighboring country, the Dwendalian Empire. Long have these drow abandoned their worship to Lolth the Spider Queen and now worship something called the Luxon, or the Light, symbolized by this dodecahedron called the Luxon Beacon. So obviously we can pick out the Light Cleric out of the bunch, but you could also be a Divine Soul Sorcerer, as it's very much ingrained in the community itself. They have temples throughout Xhorhas, even in the town that you will start in this adventure. You could be sent to check in on this temple or search for potential acolytes. And without going into spoilers too much, this Luxon Beacon is actually an ancient artifact that predates the primordials, and this allows those that study it power over space and time. So for concept number 3, we look at the Chronergy and Graviturgy Wizards, those who have taken this power from this religious artifact and turned them into glyphs and spellbooks. These subclasses actually made specifically for this Wildmount setting, as they practice a magic called Dunomancy. With this magic, you can influence the pace of time and the intenseness of gravity. You could be traveling to continue your arcane study, or trying to find a magical artifact called Ruidium that we'll get to in a second. However, messing with this time and space also allows the user to sometimes tap into alternate realities or potential selves. So for concept number 4, we have to mention the Echo Knight Fighter, which was also from the Wildemount book. They are able to pull their potential selves from these other realities to fight alongside them. Perhaps they saw a glimpse of a potential future reality and wishes to stop it before it becomes their reality, bringing them, of course, to the Netherdeep, being the source of this future. You could also flavor the Phantom Rogue or Astral Self Monk in a very similar way. Now, another mystical feature of the Luxon Beacon is a process called Consecution. This process is a ritual that actually grants an individual the power to reincarnate within a certain radius of the beacon. So for concept number 5, I give you the Spirit Bard, able to actually tap into their previous lives for help on the battlefield. With experience over millennia, no doubt they'll find ways to inspire those around them. Knowledge Domain Cleric would also prove useful, as they can switch out the skills known to something they may have mastered in a previous life. And being reborn doesn't mean that you're a drow turning into another drow. No. You could be a goblin or an orc that was a drow in a previous life and now is going through an identity crisis. But in this separate town, they're trying to decipher all of these memories in their head that's not theirs, causing them to adventure to try to figure it all out. But enough on the Kryn dynasty for a while. We'll next focus on a nearby superpower that actually fell not a couple decades ago. Draconia, a flying city in the sky of Dragonborn that was felled by the Chroma Conclave, a group of chromatic dragons. For concept number 6, we can use the Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer. The terrible thing that happened here is also a great setup for your origin story. Being from the south, these Dragonborn refugees are now scattered across Xhorhas. You might be in the right place at the right time looking for a new home when this adventure begins. You could also be an Ascendant Dragon Monk who took their power from the felled or defeated Dragon Vorgol who felled the city. Or you could have passed through the wreckages any race afterwards and become a Drake Warden Ranger. But knowing that all of this land is still war-torn and blighted, we look at a druid that is at home here. With concept number 7, we take on a unique form with the Circle of Land and Circle of Spores druids. They may take on a more thorny or abyssal visage. You may be a druid that inherited the burden of trying to save the land that you're in, turning the blasted land into something a little bit more thriving. Or you could be a druid that strives to sustain the bizarre and supernatural landscape. This may bring you on this adventure for either reason, as the unknown provides many opportunities. And while the land can arguably be conserved, conserving the beasts and the monsters and the aberrations therein are a little less controversial. A specific group or groups of people called the Claret Orders have taken it on themselves to hunt down the undead and fiends that plague the land. So with number 8 gives us our first unofficial option, the Blood Hunter. Created by Matthew Mercer himself, we get a full gothic class that practices hemocraft or blood magic. Given to them by the Raven Queen herself, they practice curses and sometimes lycanthropy, fighting fire with fire and often becoming the monster themselves in this obsession. Now obviously check with your DM before you use any homebrew, but if you want to find out ways to flavor any of the other classes to be more blood magic, check out my blood magic video, which I'll link in the description. But speaking of fiends, if we look in a specific place in Xhorhas, we find a city called Bazzoxan, a large village built below a massive and ancient black temple. Perfect for concept number 9, the Fiend Warlock, as this was the throne of many demon princes during the Calamity. These ruins still contain a labyrinth of hallways that connect to portals to the abyss, often letting out demons into the material realm. As such, this place is heavily militarized and under martial law. You can also talk with your DM to find other places that are influenced by other deities that came from this war. Evil gods that are still waiting to wreak havoc freely again on this world. They could have also even heard of this dark power within the Netherdeep and want you to go and collect it for them. But speaking specifically of one of these dark gods, we find Bane the Strife Emperor, who long ago cast a curse on all of the goblinoid of this area. This curse of strife causes those affected to lash out in malice or destruction. Perfect for concept number 10, a conquest paladin or a zealot barbarian that was born with this curse. Or you could embrace this deity of war and conquest and become a war cleric. Or you could try to be finding release from this grip on your mind and emotions, forcing you to make rash decisions like going into the depth of an ocean. Some gods that also influence this land could be Loth, Tiamat, Asmodeus, Vecna or Grumps, just to name a few. Some feats you may consider with the Luxion and their magic of probability and potential selves could be lucky, skilled, linguist, prodigy, skill expert, or other feats that you could pull from previous lives. If you've lived in Xhorhas for quite some time, some feats you might consider would include Eldritch Adept, Shadow Touched, Skulker, Alert, Durable, or Tough, or whatever else you use to thrive in this wasteland. Some backgrounds that you might consider for the Kryn dynasty would be Acolyte, Archaeologist, Courtier, or Sage. For those in the Wastes, Bounty Hunter, Far Traveler, Haunted One, or Outlander. All of these would be flavorful depending on the story you're going for. But however you got to where you are now, your party starts in a little town called Jigao, a mobile oceanside town that's actually built on the back of giant tortoises. But something is unique about this place because Xhorhas in and of itself is much different from other settings. Monster races are the norm here, and humans, elves, dwarves are very much the minority. Actually, nearly 50% of the population is goblinoid and 30% orc. You know what? I'll actually pass the ball over to our special guest, Jay from Play Your Role, as he'll explain what this dynamic might look like. Take it away, Jay.
Hey everybody, Jay from Play Your Role here. I'm supposed to talk about monstrous races, which is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so thanks Cleric for giving me that chance again. Basically, when you're playing a monstrous race in this setting specifically, there's something you have to keep in mind. For once, the monstrous races are the ones that are expected. They're the norm, they're the culture here. And that means something really exciting. It means specifically, you get to play these races without having to deal with the idea of why is my character here? Why does this race exist here? And what does it mean to be an alien in this society? You're not, you are you. You get to experience the culture of that. So if you want to play an orc, you don't have to be constantly worried about how people are going to perceive you. You get to experience what orcs are like when orcs are around. Or if you want to play a goblin, you don't have to hide who you are. You get to be loud and proud. And so you get the chance to explore and enjoy this idea of being actually in the culture of these monstrous races, which I think is a lot of fun. And you also get to be more of what you'd expect them to be. It also gets the chance to humanize the monstrous races a little bit. And I think that's a lot of fun to be able to explore the different ways that they get to interact with these things. Ultimately, the main thing you need to keep in mind while playing these races in this adventure is you get to be you. That's really great and a lot of fun. And it lets you really focus in on who your character is on top of your race, not because of your race. And ultimately, I think that's a lot of fun. Anyways, thanks Cleric, back to you.
Thanks Jay, as always, I value your insight. Great shirt, by the way. If you all get a chance, check out his channel after the video. He has incredible tips on how to match your roleplay and storytelling to create the narrative that you really want for your games. Want to know how to play a loose cannon or an evil character in a very tasteful way? He's got you covered. Check him out, I'll have his channel linked in the description. But listing off some other races that might be native to Jigao, you have bugbears, lizard folk, hobgoblin, grung, and minotaurs, just to name a few. Really have fun with new roleplay elements in a unique society. And now that we've covered concepts from the lands of Xhorhas, let's look at the deep ocean and create character concepts from the Lucidian Ocean. Races here could include Triton, Sea Elves, Lucatha, or Simic Hybrid if you want to take from the Ravnica setting. But if you like this video so far, consider subscribing and liking the video, as it's the only way for me to know to continue to make videos like this one. I have a current goal to reach 10K subscribers by the end of the year, which will help me so much in creating the content that I want to make for you guys. But for concept number 1, the aberrational force of the Aboleth might be your route to become a fathomless or great old one warlock. The pull of the ocean too strong as you slowly become a thrall of this creature. Or you could have stopped hearing the voice of your patron and you go into these depths to try to figure out what happened. You could have a similar pact with the Madrid in a genie subclass, going to cash in your third wish, especially with the rumor of a portal to the water plane deep beneath the shallows. You also may have heard of the dangers of this depths with concept number 2, the Tempest Domain Cleric, a devout sailor of the Stormlord that's here for smuggling, trading, or bounty hunting. Or, I just had this thought, a land druid of the coast pirate who turns into a parrot with a peg leg. You could also take on another form of homebrew if your DM allows it, the Oath of the Open Sea Paladin, another made by Matthew Mercer and made famous with Ford from campaign 2 of Critical Role. For party number 3, your party could possibly need a guide to venture through these depths, calling out the Horizon Walker Ranger or Scout Rogue. The Netherdeep was actually made by the evil deity Grumpsh when he threw a spear through the material plane, piercing the plane of water. This trapped another ancient deity down there, but that would be spoilers. We need sneakers and heavy hitters for the grand and alien creatures that dominate this world. You could be experts on the land down under or the creatures that populate it. You could lead down the party willingly or not be so keen on leading them to their deaths. I'm sure your DM would be happy to foreshadow some of these terrifying creatures. But something in specific makes these creatures terrifying, and that something makes up a large portion of the trouble that you can get into in the Netherdeep. It's something called Ruidium, a blood-red crystalline element that corrupts all that it touches. Exposure to this element creates feelings of yearning, rage, despair, and dread, and this deep ocean is infected by it. So for concept number 4, imagine an Earth Genasi made entirely of these crystals, making a wild magic barbarian. Each time they rage, they tap into this mysterious element. They are looking for purpose and reasons why they aren't dying and can channel this magic. Or perhaps they just want to find out where they got it from. Or this tapping could be more by choice, leading us to concept number 5, an artillerist or armor artificer that uses these elements to power their weaponry. They are careful not to touch these crystals with their bare hands, but it results in powerful magic items for their party. Or you could be a transmutation wizard who came here to study the weird properties of these stones, and hopefully making new headway into new magics and new spells, even using these things as magical components, or having this rock as one of your transmuter stones. But for concept number 6, what if we tamed some of these creatures that were corrupted by Ruidium? Imagine your Beastmaster or Swarmkeeper Ranger that has a shark companion or a school of anglerfish that pulse with veins of this dark red energy. Maybe they can handle this corruption, but you can't. Or perhaps you have tamed them by trapping a Ruidium crystal within a metal locket around your neck. Your beast could even look a little more otherworldly, as your shark could have tentacles like an octopus, or your anglerfish are as long and sleek as an eel. But for concept number 7, what if you were the one that was corrupted and changed by this element? You're a beast barbarian, but instead your claws take the form of jellyfish tentacles that hang off your body. Or, here's an idea, a Storm Herald Barbarian that's a hybrid with an electric eel. You could really tempt fate with the Berserker Barbarian, who as a class goes into exhaustion when they use its abilities. And you'll see in the adventure how this really ties in with Ruidium. Or perhaps you're a moon druid who is transforming between a water elemental and some of these corrupted creatures. Perhaps you've made your home down here and you're actually the subject of many tall tales that sailors share amongst themselves about a beast beneath the waves. But this corruption could also come in the form of magical manipulation, changing the corruption into more of a charm. For concept number 8, we see the Glamour Bard. But instead of the Fae, the Mantle of Inspiration comes in a blood-red visage of these crystals, and your enthralling performance is pushing out this influence on other people. You can do a similar effect with the Archfey Warlock or the Fey Wanderer Ranger. Or you could flavor this effect to be the actual damage that you're channeling. For number 9, look at the Oath of the Watcher's Paladin that channels their smites with a blood-red radiant energy. It also protects your party from the aberrations that might also be affected by this crystal, and it has the spell Moonbeam, which I'll mention why this is a good thing in a second. They could be hiding their power source from their party and choosing one day to reveal it. This could also be the source of your Sun Soul Monk's power or your Celestial Warlock. And the radiant damage would make sense too, as it would be important to mention that Ruidium is named after the moon Ruidus, and this element was fabled to have fallen in a meteor shower from this moon so long ago. So your pack could come from the moon itself. But this blood-red satellite is one of 2 moons that orbit Exandria. So perhaps for concept number 10, we have the Twilight Domain Cleric that taps into the red darkness that this moon permits. Perhaps you also use the Stars Druid, or the Lunar Magic Sorcerer in a recent Unearthed Arcana, after of course they actually get a chance to balance this subclass. Perhaps you're on a quest to recover these elements for your moon religion, or possibly to use them in rituals or divine foci. Some feats you may consider if you're familiar with the sea: Athlete, Mobile, Keen Mind, Inspiring Leader, or Telepathic might help your party within these depths. If you were touched by the magic of Ruidium, you could pick up Crusher, Savage Attacker, Eldritch Adept, Fey-touched, Metamagic Adept, or Magic Initiate. Coming by the sea, you might pick up Sailor, Shipwright, Smuggler, or Fisher as backgrounds. Is your reputation surrounding these Ruidium crystals? Try Criminal, Hermit, Investigator, or Folk Hero. And even though I've listed all of these ideas, nothing is stopping you from creating your own character, your own story, and your own origin. Make it your own and have fun. Especially if you thought of other subclasses that may fit these locations better, please let me know and tell me in the comments below. But hopefully got your mind going with concepts and ideas to make your Netherdeep adventure a memorable one. If you plan to do a Strixhaven adventure in the near future, I did a similar video here that you can check out. But in the meantime, go out there and spread the good word of D&D and make the world a better place, both on and off your tables. See you in the next one.